Howdy you all, you're back with Cooking with Dr. T from Tastee's Catering. And today we're making a spin that we all grew up on, but everyone has their own way of doing it. We're making spaghetti with marinara and cheddar meatballs. This is a little bit different than what you always see on TV. It's what we do at our house. Right, so I know with my family, my husband and daughter don't really care about meatballs like that, but I love a good meatball. So to trick them to eat it, guess what we're going to stuff that bad boy with? Some sharp cheddar. We're going to talk about that. So before we get started, I'm going to tell you how we're going to make this. So I already have my seasonings, and once again, in my videos, I'll actually have the recipe down below. So these are my seasonings that I'll be needing for both my sauce and my meatballs. It's garlic powder, onion powder, Italian seasoning, garlic parmesan seasoning, black pepper, salt, as well as red pepper flakes, and oregano. And we'll go back to that. Our herbs that we're going to be using, fresh oregano, Italian parsley. Now I want you to pull in close to this. Italian parsley is not the curly parsley, it's flat. And what happens has a little bit more ting to it, like a little bit peppery taste to it at the very back end. So we're going to make our own sauce, baby. We ain't going through the can. I know we love a good ragu or a good pesto or whatever that one, pergu or whatever it's called. I don't do with it. We're going to make your own sauce that's cheaper, and you can make enough of it and put some to the back. And I'm going to show you how. So we have canned tomato sauce, and then I have 1 can of crushed roasted red tomatoes. I'm going to put some sun-dried tomatoes in mine just because I like the flavor. We got some cherry tomatoes that have already been washed. And then for us, my daughter doesn't really like mushrooms. So what I do, I cut them big enough so she can just pick those suckers out because I like them. So this has onions and bell peppers in it. And we use half a white onion and a whole bell pepper. Now, this is beef summer sausage. Now you like, how the hell she gonna put some sauce? This is beef sausage, and it gives it a good flavor, and I took it out the casing. So once you take it out the casing, you can chop it nice and neat like this. And I'll show you at the end what that sausage looks like. Then we have our shredded carrots to add to our seasoning, a little red wine, some minced garlic, and just a little bit of sugar, because some people like their sauce a little bit sweeter. And then we have our spaghetti noodles, yes, straight up out of the H&B's. Then for our meatballs, where we have breadcrumbs, we have the same herb seasoning, flash, it's the Italian parsley, fresh basil, as well as fresh oregano, sharp cheddar cheese that I cut. What you can do, get it in the block, cut your own cubes, and then shred the rest and put it in the freezer. Shredded cheese goes great in a Ziploc bag in the freezer, especially when you catch it on sale. That way you always have cheese. Then I'll use only a half a bell pepper and half of a white onion. We're going to use some real Parmesan cheese, 2 eggs, and these are breadcrumbs. Now, what I have in my bowl is, we add a little butter to sauce everything. What I have in my bowl, I have 2 pounds of lean beef, ground beef, and then I have 2 pounds of, coming closer, my helper is my producer. She my daughter, she my director, she my fuss maker. But this is Italian seasoned ground turkey. I have 2 pounds of that. And let me tell you, my husband doesn't eat pork, so we're kind of a pork-free family. So I wanted that same Italian seasoning you put Italian sausage in, but they have Italian ground turkey. One thing about ground turkey is lean already, so it doesn't have a lot of fat in it. So sometimes you got to put the fat back in it. So what I'm going to do in this bowl, because remember, I'm going to do meatballs and I'm going to do my meat sauce because I know who I'm dealing with. I'm going to take about a pound of that ground turkey, and I put it there. And I'm going to take a little bit of this ground beef, okay? This right here is going to be what I'll use along with the beef sausage for my marinara, all right? This right here is going to be for my meatballs. So we're going to set that to the side. Now, with any good spaghetti or Italian, you always know you got to have olive oil. We'll be using olive oil later. But what I want to do before I start my meatballs is I want to get started on my sauce. And what we're going to do, I have a Dutch oven pan. I'm going to add about a tablespoon of butter to our Dutch oven right there. And remember, butter burns because it has fat, burns at a higher temperature. So we're going to put that in there. Burns fast. So we're going to add our olive oil. Right there. Okay. And we're going to smear that around. Now, I already have my water back here. It's not boiling yet. We're talking about making sure you salt your water. So I hope people are like, oh, I'm watching my blood pressure. I'm not adding no salt. I don't eat salt. But when you eat pasta, you have to add salt to actually flavor the spaghetti. That's why when you get spaghetti, it's like bland because it don't have no flavor. So you add salt to the water in order to make sure as your spaghetti cooks that it actually gets flavor. You can add a chicken bouillon cube, something, but you can tell somebody who just put some noodles in some water and boiled it. So what we're gonna do over in this cast iron skillet, I'm gonna go ahead and let that heat up a little bit. And while this pan is heating up, I'm gonna go ahead and start adding my flavors. So my daughter just came and told me I didn't tie my hair up, so let me do that. Cause you know we don't want more in our pot. I don't know why she just didn't tell me that. Wow, and I told she could talk. She ain't the silent partner. She ain't putting no money toward this video. Yeah. Let me wash my hands. And she was kind enough to go give me an example. This is what it says, beef summer sausage. Okay? I used a small one of the whole of these. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take that same sausage and dump it in this pan. Remember I add the olive oil and the butter to there. Now we're going to add mushrooms, our bell peppers, and our onions. Now, you're going to say, why is she adding carrots? We're adding carrots because carrots have a natural sweetness to it. And anytime you have a lot of tomatoes, they have an acidic taste to it. So sometimes, like some people say, they can eat tomatoes, they get ulcers in their mouth because they're so acidic. So we add a little carrots in order to add the sweetness to it. Okay. So we're going to let that cook on down. You can smell, baby. If you could smell.
This is a cooking show, not a singing show.
See, I'm gonna put her back on mute. Because I wasn't singing. So now, we're going to go ahead. Pan a little warm. We're going to add that ground meat and ground turkey. Now, the thing is, like, she didn't use the same spoon. Well, because it's going in the same pot, right? So we're going to get this. We're going to turn the fire down. Put it on low. What I'm doing is breaking this ground turkey up. And people are like, well, you need to add a little oil. Well, this is what I found to be true. A lot of ground beef, even though it's 88, I got 80%, 80-20, it's still going to cook off a little fat. And we're going to drain it anyway. So I don't need to add more oil to this ground meat. Now, we want to do this with the turkey because we need those flavors to mix. And people complain about ground turkey not having a little flavor, no flavor. And me being I actually went to school for upholstery science, yeah, you got to do a little bit more work with turkey, right? You got to add a little more season to it. So I'm going to let this sit down. I'm mashing, I'm spreading it out. I don't want the meat to clump together, right? And to be honest with you, I made a faux pas. I should, because it's meat, ground meat. I should be using a metal stove, not a wooden stove. I'm going to wash this off. Because you don't really want to be using a wooden spoon with ground meat, so it could be so it could get into the moisture, get into the texture of the wood. I messed that all up, but y'all know what the hell I'm trying to say. Okay, so we're gonna cook that down. Now you see how the flavors are coming together. Now I'm gonna take my seasoning. Remember I mixed them up before. And remember, we're making our own sauce. We're not doing all that other stuff. We ain't coming out the can. So I mixed this already. Remember I told you what's all in here. And you're like, dang, a lot of seasoning. But this is going to be what we're going to use throughout. So I'm going to put a tablespoon of that in there. And I'm going to put a tablespoon, so I distribute it over that. And then we're going to save some more of this for our meatballs. So right now this is on medium heat. And all I'm doing is getting these vegetables, because this is the base of a good spaghetti sauce, right? And once again, if you don't eat mushrooms, don't put mushrooms in there. It is important when you add mushrooms, they're little sponges. They're going to pick up any flavor that's around them. So you want to just add it with your onions and bell peppers so they have a good flavor versus adding at the very end. It's all about your preference. So you see this meat is browning nice with the turkey. Now I understand the turkey's going to brown faster than that ground meat. And my sister, my older sister, that lives out of town, her family just eats, they can do just the ground turkey. And a lot of people just do the ground turkey. My family can't. I need the ground meat. I need that beef, right? And the thing about this sauce, it's so good, baby. Sometimes you may even got to put no meat in it. But when we get done cooking, I'm doing my sauce first. So I want it to simmer about 30 minutes. And I know, working moms, working dads, you're like, oh, I don't have time for that. Yeah, you do. You get this to simmer, because this is something you can start and do in the morning and put in the crock pot on low, and it'll be nice and ready for you. And I did season my ground meat and turkey. Now, what I want to do, I'm cooking this meat till all the pink is out of it. Okay? And for people who, a lot of times when you get heartburn or things like that, it's not because of the garlic. It's because the meat has been, you cook with too much oil. And sometimes that gives you heartburn. So that's why I like doing it this way and then adding it. Because that beef sausage had a good flavor. Summer sausage had a good flavor to it already. And I'm just breaking this meat up. Because I'm not going to brown it. That's the difference. I'm not going to brown it. I'm going to cook it until all the pink is out of it. And I'm going to tell you why. Because we're going to add it to that mixture there as our base for our sauce. And we wanted to get all the flavors of that seasoning that we added, which was the herbs, which was the seasoning, the mushrooms, and the onions and bell peppers. And I hate in my spaghetti if I can crunchy bell peppers. I don't want no crunchy bell peppers. I'm not eating a salad. So that's going to simmer. And then we're going to add our sun-dried tomatoes. Right in there.
How much did you just put in there?
It's about a fourth tablespoon, about a fourth cup. And they're going to break down as it cooks. And one thing about the sun-dried tomatoes that I got, they're already in a little olive oil already. Okay? Now, remember I got these cherry tomatoes. I'm not going to peel them. I'm just going to dump them. They've been already washed. And they're going to simmer down. And when you see them simmer, they're going to start to pop. And that's going to get that good little flavor. Going to thicken it up and all that good stuff. If you don't quit rolling your eyes at me when I sing my song, it's me cooking, you ain't paying for this. Okay. So now, see, look. Because of that. You see all that? Not all that extra grease, right? All that extra fat. So I'm using a slotted spoon. And what I want to do, this is always a tricky part. I'm going to slide this over a little bit more. I'll turn my fire off. Because I want to add my meat right when I feel like these cherry tomatoes are going to pop. Cherry tomatoes, by nature, they're tomatoes, but they have a little sweetness to them. And they're small enough that the skin is not tough. You don't want to do this with whole vine ripe tomatoes. The skin will be tough, and you need to actually peel those type of tomatoes.
How long does it usually take before they pop?
About 5 to 10 minutes on. I'm trying to heat up a little bit. So I've turned the meat off. I've turned my meat off. I've turned my heat off of my meat. See all that good flavor in the bottom of that pot. See, I'm mashing them down to pop them a little bit. So now, there you go. I'm just gonna take my spoon, the back of my spoon, and mash them.
Did it pop?
No, I burnt myself. Okay. So now we're going to slide this over. Once again, I'm using a slided spoon. You can use a colander if you want. I just know because I use turkey and ground beef that it's not as, doesn't have a lot of oil or less fat left over from it, okay? Now, once again, everyone has their rendition. I am not from Italy. I've never traveled to Italy. But I will tell you, when you watch other cooking shows, you know, you can watch 25 cooking shows, and they all have a different way, because it's kind of like how we think about gumbo. It's what you grew up with, and I will tell you, this is not your mama's spaghetti back that we used to get in the day, right? I know that already. So now I'm mashing the tomatoes that I see. Allowing them to pop. You got the sun-dried tomatoes in there. You got the carrots. You got the bell peppers. You got the mushrooms. You have the onions. All that is cooking down and melting together. And we're going to get this all melted together before we add our tomato sauce. So all I'm doing right now is mashing these down. Let that simmer some. While that simmer, we're going to get started on our meatballs. Forgot to add my garlic, y'all. So I'm going to add that right on there. It'll be all right. You know, you cooking at home, sometimes you get busy, forget. I promise you'll be all right. So what I'm going to do before I add my can of tomatoes, this is what I like to add. Adds a little richness to it. And it's some red wine. I use Cabernet Sauvignon. I probably said that wrong. And I use about 1/4 a cup. And we're going to go and mix that in. And then what about wine? When you ever use wine, you want to give it time to cook off the alcohol content. But if you could smell it now, you don't need a lot. A lot goes a long way. And you use wine a lot to if you want to deglaze the pan, things like that. I add it on to kind of give my sauce a little bit richness to it. Once again, you can take it or you can leave it. And just that fast, see, I didn't add that much, it's already cooking down. So now what I'm going to do, while y'all were away, We open up the cans. This is our fire roasted tomatoes. Add those. Give that a good stir. See how I'm stirring around and then flipping? Around and then flipping? That's not stirring. You want to turn around and then flip. Turn around and then flip. Okay. Now we're going to add our tomato sauce. Both cans. See, now you're like, oh, yeah. It's meaty. I can't stand the watery sauce, but everybody is different, and I respect that. But great thing about this sauce, you can cook it and then put some in the refrigerator, and I'm going to show you what you can do with the leftovers of this too. Great to make enough and save some in a freezer lid, freezer covered container, and then put it in the freezer. Now we're going to add a pinch of sugar. This is up to you. I do about 3 pinches, okay? Stir, get that in there. So again, you want your sauce sweeter, add more sugar. I like my meat to be meat and my sweet to be sweet. I don't like to mix those two. So now we're going to add this is parsley, basil, and oregano. Fresh. Give that a good stir in there. Once again, I did not go to culinary school, but I know what I like. So we get that in there. Okay. And now, all right. Now we got that. We're gonna taste it. You don't want it to simmer and not have the flavor you want. Very good. I'm gonna let my producer taste it, because this was her request by.
It's good.
Okay. All right. And I tasted it a little early before I put it to simmer, just to make sure that it wasn't over salted. I can always go back and add pepper and more things like that. You can't do is when you have too much salt, you really can't undo it. You got to add more liquid to it to kind of desalt it. So I wanted to make sure my salt content was just right, because remember, we're going to add salt on pasta, so we don't want to over salt both items together. So now we're going to turn this back burner on, and we're going to put it on the simmer. Now this is the thing, this sauce doesn't really take long. Because it's all we're doing right now is letting it simmer. So while it simmers, we're going to make our meatballs. So you want to simmer for about 30 minutes. By the time we get done with our meatballs, that should be done. We're going to turn it up on my simmer, and we're going to hit it, and I'm going to cover it. Now I'm cover it all the way, because I don't want to clean all this up from plop plop. All right, so now we're going to work on our meatballs.